Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
You are sitting ringside with David Penzer on Radio Influence.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Sitting Ringside. My name is David Penzer. We are so happy, as always, that you are with us to listen to this thing we call a podcast. Really excited about my guest this week. It's funny. We've been doing this almost a year, and this guy was a phone call away. He is a good friend and a huge mentor to me, and I almost like I put off interviewing Jody. We're interviewing Jody Hamilton, the masked assassin, whose career goes back all the way to 1958, where he headlined Madison Square Garden at the age of 19, and still involved a little bit in the business, but was involved with WCW and WWE through the 2000s. Anyway, I almost kept making excuses why I'd put him off. And so this week I decided to give him a call, and I was trying to figure out why I was putting him off. And I got to be honest with you guys, for the first time since I started doing this, I'm a little bit nervous. He was very instrumental in look, let's put it this way. And I'm gonna ask him about it, and we'll see what he says. But let's put it this way. He did a favor for a guy named Bob Roop, who I hope to have on the podcast down the road, who's I became friends with in Fort Lauderdale. Most people know my story. He did a favor for Bob Roop. He could have done a favor for 2 weeks and blew me off. Most 98% of the people in this business to this day would have done that very thing. For whatever reason, he not only invited me in and with open arms, but he taught me and he supported me and he did this to a lot of guys. And I hope to talk to him about it, but really, getting to sit at what they call the gorilla position, but I'd say no disrespect to the late great Gorilla Monsoon, but I in WCW and I'd call it the Jody position, and getting to sit before the matches, even for 20 minutes at the Jody position, was more knowledge than you were going to get from almost anybody else in the company at that time. And so many guys got to sit there. I know Diamond Dallas Page mentioned it in his Hall of Fame speech. I know Bill Goldberg got to sit. So many guys that are stars today, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, who will tell you that the time that they got with Jody Hamilton sitting at the Jody position before the matches started, somewhere between catering and when the matches started, were lessons. I know Scott D'Amore, who's the vice president of Impact Wrestling, will tell you, and I think he did discuss this on our podcast that we had with him, that Jody was such an influence in his life as well, in his career as well. So little nervous on this one, got to admit. But we're got some questions. God, he has like 50 years, 60 years of 60 years, I think, of memories of accomplishment. So we're going to keep it, brief so that I don't want to go on for 3 hours with Jody. He's retired and was generous enough to give us 30, 45, 50 minutes of his time. But so I finally pulled the plug, and we're going to interview Jody Hamilton, the Masked Assassin. If you have never heard of Jody Hamilton, the Masked Assassin, I would definitely recommend either putting this podcast on pause for a few minutes, or when you are done listening to it, be sure to go to YouTube and check out some of his work. One of the greatest promo guys in the business, one of the scariest interviews in the business. He's a scary guy with the black outfit and the black and yellow mask, gold mask, of which I have an autographed assassin mask in my office right behind me as we speak, that I will always cherish. And especially, and I'm going to talk to him about it, Google or on YouTube, El Santo, the Assassin. If you put in El Santo, the Assassin, it comes right up. I looked at it today. One of the greatest angles I've ever seen. I saw it when it happened. I don't want to say live. I wasn't in the Sportatorium in Tampa when they taped it on Wednesday morning, but I saw it that Saturday play out, and I was blown away by the angle, by the promo that followed, by the business they did afterwards, it's in angles like that not only do you appreciate a guy like Jody Hamilton and the charisma of a Dusty Rhodes, but what Gordon Soley added to those angles is you can't even, there's no words. The subtleness and just watch the angle and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And he did this with so many angles and so many guys, and talking about people that helped others' careers. Gordon Soley, in one angle could the way he would react, or one promo, the way he would react, whether he was back in a baby face or disgusted by a heel, he can, make you some money for sure. And so be sure to check that out. I really urge you to. One of the greatest angles of all time. Wasn't scripted. Obviously, they knew what was going on, but it was not scripted like today's wrestling, and it was from the heart. And good stuff. So El Santo, the Assassin, be sure to Google it. I even if you are familiar with the Assassin, for those of you who don't know, Jody went on to discover the power plant in WCW. And so really worked with WCW throughout all my time there till the very end, and just did so much for the business. So looking forward to talking to him in just a moment. Hey, want to thank you guys I got a lot of feedback on the Rip Rogers interview. Jerry Peacock's laughing. Those little quick takes we do, the what do you call those promos, Jerry? The quick fixes that I put on Twitter, that I repost on Twitter, little previews. I wanted Jerry to do one where he bleeped out like 40 of the F-bombs, so we could bleep out like every other word to try to create interest. Unfortunately, Twitter has rules about stuff like that, and Jerry also has a company to run. I'm not with about another 25 podcasts that they have to put together each and every week. So, plus he just turned 40. Happy birthday, Jerry Peacock, turning 40. I was at the party. A lot of fun, from what I remember. No, I remember everything. And so we didn't get to put out a preview like that, but it's, the one thing about Rip Rogers is he's not politically correct, and he's not afraid to say what he feels, and he doesn't care who likes it, doesn't like it. Thinking about having Rip on, like to do maybe a 10, 15-minute segment every month or so. I'm trying to think of something nifty to call it, maybe anti-PC or no politically incorrect with Rip Rogers. I don't know. If you have any ideas, hit me up on Twitter at David Penzer or at Penzer Ringside. If you have any ideas, if you'd like to see a monthly segment with Rip, for about 10, 15 minutes. We could take questions from you guys and let him answer it. His thoughts on current day, sort of kind of like we did with Disco a couple of months ago. And so let me know what you think. And let me know if you could come up with a good name for a segment. If you come up with something, we'll find a way to send you some WCW something from.
I get it. It's a wrestling podcast, but he's saving us money on our mortgage. You really trust this process? The reviews don't lie. 5-star review after 5-star review. We make it fast, we make it easy, and it's no cost or obligation. Give us a shot to earn your business. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did, especially if you like keeping more of your own money. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket, so what are you waiting for? Hurry to SaveWithConrad.com.
My collection as a thank you. If you come up with a name that we end up using, we'll send you something that's a collectible that as a thank you. So it's at David Penzer, at Penzer Ringside. If you do not use social media, you could certainly hit us up, David Penzer at radioinfluence.com, David Penzer at radioinfluence.com. So here's an opportunity for somebody to come up with a segment name and win some something from my personal collection of WCW swag. So I didn't even think about it. I think I was going to do that, but you never know what's going to happen on City Ringside. Hey, hoping to have Tessa Blanchard next week. Working out the details now. We certainly will have her in the lead up to Slammiversary at some point. And interesting third-generation wrestler, not only was her grandfather promoter in Texas, but also a wrestler, Joe Blanchard. Of course, her father, Tully Blanchard, one of the original Four Horsemen. And interestingly enough, her stepfather is Magnum TA. So talk about a wrestling pedigree. And she had been flirting with NXT, but ended up in Impact Wrestling, and they're having Slammiversary come up in a few weeks, and so we're going to have her on and help promote Slammiversary, hoping to get Sanjay Dutt on, who's the creative behind Impact Wrestling as well. So it's a little tease out there for you. We're hoping to have them on as we creep up towards Slammiversary at the end of July. All right, I know I'm nervous about doing this, but I can't hold it off any longer because I'm babbling. Without further ado, please welcome my mentor, a man whom, without him, I could never have lived my dream, and I would never be on this podcast talking to you now. That is absolutely sure. And also, not only that, it's not only about me. One of the greatest wrestlers and teachers and heels of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to bring on City Ringside Jody Hamilton, the Masked Assassin. What a legendary career my guest this week has had throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. It's just unbelievable. Going to get to his career in just a moment. But I want to introduce to you a man who embraced me in a business that I had no business being in, and not only was he one of my favorite wrestlers as a kid growing up, but he did so much for me. And so Jody Hamilton, the Assassin, welcome to City Ringside. It's funny. Ever since I've been doing this podcast, which is about a year now, I've wanted to have you on, but this is the first time I'm kind of nervous. It's sort of like interviewing your dad.
I'll try to put you at ease and get you nice and relaxed so we can go through this thing smoothly.
No, you just, it's funny. I speak to so many people. Scott D'Amore, who's a VP of Impact Wrestling now, and I spoke to Rip Rogers. We had him on last week. What a nutcase, but I love him. And I speak to so many people who just talk about Bob Cook, who talk about how you taught them so much, and those aren't even the people you trained. Hell, those are just people that you sat around and just told stories and gave out knowledge. So it's really amazing. I don't know if you realize it, and I'm not trying to kiss your ass, but I'm just being totally honest. So I'm looked over.
Oh, hell, I thought you were trying to kiss my ass.
Well, I am too. So So I looked over your career, and God, there's so much to talk about that I'm sort of overwhelmed. So instead of starting out about talking about your career, we're going to get to it in a minute. I'm going to talk about my career. Why the hell did you embrace, and I'm being honest, you don't have to kiss my ass, why the hell did Bob Roop asked you to do a favor for a friend of his who was a 5'6", non-athletic, supposed ring announcer, and you could have kind of, I know this business now. You could have had, done me a favor for a couple of weeks and never brought me back up and never had me book guys, and you didn't though. And I'm being honest when I say this because it's sort of why I was nervous to do the podcast. What did you see in me that nobody that wasn't there that you were, took me in and allowed me to learn from somebody like you who had been, done so many things for so many years?
Well,
Not to put you on the spot.
No. When you do things that starts out as a favor for other people, you're looking for reasons to shut it down, cut it off, make it as short and sweet as possible, and so on.
Sure.
But the more we were associated together, the more I saw your enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is something that I think is one of the command requirements for success in any profession, but especially in ours. And when I saw the enthusiasm that you had and everything that you did, and then I saw the quality of your work and so on, then I was more than eager and more than willing to help you as much as I could.
Well, I just want to say, I've told you before, but I want to say on the record on this podcast, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. You were instrumental in me living my dream and actually still continuing to be involved in a business that I love. So thank you. And but now I want to get to your amazing career. The one thing that fascinates me is not so much what a career you've had, but how successful you were to start. 1958, May of 1958, at the age of 19 years old, you headlined, and I don't know if a lot of people know this. I know it's in your book, which I read last year, which I would recommend to anybody who wants a history lesson of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s of pro wrestling. But you headlined Madison Square Garden with your brother versus Antonio Rocca and Miguel Perez at the 1958. That just blows my mind. Wondering, speaking about being nervous for me doing this interview, how nervous were you headlining a place I've never even gotten to announce, which is on my bucket list, headlining at such a young age?
I was too nervous to puke.
There you go.
I'll never forget. As a matter of fact, my wife and I were sitting up the lake the other day, and we got to talking about my career and so on. And this has always been one of the outstanding moments of my career. And I can remember it. And when I go back and remember it, sometimes I still get the chill bumps. Standing backstage behind the curtains in Madison Square, the old Madison Square Garden.
Right.
Surrounded by 18 cops with my brother. And I'm standing there, and when they put the spotlight on us and open those curtains and those cops start moving forward, I was paralyzed.
I imagine.
My legs would not move.
Oh, my God.
And I said, my God, what am I going to do? And fortunately, one of the cops behind me thought I was going to walk and take a step and everything, and he bumped into me and pushed me forward and forced me to walk.
There you go.
And then I managed to get to the ring, and when I'm standing in the ring, I'm shaking, and my legs are weak. You heard the old expression, my legs felt like a bowl of Jell-O.
Right.
That's exactly what my legs felt like, a bowl of Jell-O. And I was scared to death. And then right prior to the beginning of the match, they turned all the house lights on. And there we sit or stand in the middle of the ring. I'm surrounded by 20,000 over better people, or better than 20,000 people, I should say. And that's damn near as many people as that was in my hometown when I grew up, you know.
Wow.
And I said to myself, what the hell am I doing here? And I was just, like I say, I was paralyzed. And my brother, I didn't show it because my brother had me start the match.
Oh, my God.
And I was fine as soon as Argentina Rocco started the match for his team. And he came out and he threw one of them long, looping kicks to the head and face that he was famous for. Nearly knocked my lights out. And as soon as I got hit like that, they were thinking I was okay the rest of the match.
There you go. That's amazing. That just blows my mind. Such instant success. Now, you know, a lot of times, and you know this from being a teacher and a booker, a lot of times when guys gain success so early in their career, you know, they have a hard time. You know, their head gets big, ego gets big. How were you able to control that? Because you went on and had such a long career in the Assassins and some other gimmicks. How were you able to control that as far as, you know, not only did you gain success so early in your career, it was pretty early in life. You're still a kid.
Yeah, I was, like I say, when I did that, I made my debut in the garden like that, I was 19 years old. And I managed to keep things pretty much in focus because I had my brother looking out after me, and he made sure the little brother kept everything in his proper perspective. And then later on, I teamed up with Tom, the greatest teacher. I mean, Tom taught me more than if Tom was still alive, I would say this to his face, that I will be forever indebted to Tom for all the knowledge he instilled in me, not only about life, but about the wrestling business.
Talking about
I had great teachers.
Talking about Tom Ernesto,
yeah.
The original assassin, along with you. So I'm going to jump around here a little bit because your time is valuable, and it would take a day to get through everything that you've done. But one of the things I've always been amazed about is, as a student of the history of wrestling, is the control that the major promotions had, and then those who were brave enough to go against them, to go outlaw, as they say. I spoke to Rip Rogers last week about Angelo Poffo and his outlaw promotion. So 1972, I know that Ray Gunkel passed, and his wife wanted to take over, just making a long story short. And I guess that the other members of the Georgia office didn't want her to be involved, or didn't want to give her fair share. You could tell me if I went wrong in any of that, but tell me about that. And you went along with Ann and Tom, and I'm just, tell me about that whole situation. Were you worried about getting blackballed? In hindsight, we know you ended up going right back to Georgia after the whole thing was done, but at the time, I know they were threatening to blackball everybody forever.
That was a threat because, first of all, there wasn't that much of an allegiance between the promoters that swore all this blackball nonsense and everything, because if they figure they could bring you in and draw money with you and everything, they'd bring your ass in. So all that blackball stuff and everything, they used that. They threw that word out there like a sword, trying to keep everybody in line. And I didn't buy it and didn't give a damn anyway. But the thing about it is, when Ray died, the Florida office, which had a piece of, and a couple other guys, which had a piece of the territory, they just walked in and took over. Forget about Ann; she had nothing to do with it anymore. They weren't even going to recognize her inheritance from her husband or whatever. They were just going to take over and do it. Well, Ann was a spunky woman, boy. I mean, she wasn't somebody that you were just going to boss around. And she said, well, the hell with you. I'll open up my own office. And this is exactly what she did, right downtown Atlanta. She opened up her office and offered Tom a deal to book. And when Tom went with her, I went with her too. You know, I said, "Well, I'm going where Tom goes." Plus, I don't really care for the people from the Florida office. And we had a hell of a war for a long time. And then when Jim Barnett was actually the peacemaker, he came in and bought everybody out and became the new promoter for the Atlanta area. He bought Florida's interest and he bought Ann's interest, and I think Ann still maintained a small percentage of it, but she had nothing to do with the intricate workings of the business. It was Barnett, and that's how that story went. Anyway,
it takes balls back in those days to walk away, and you know, like you said, you didn't care, and having known you, I know that you do it all over again if the same situation came up. Hey, in the 1970s and early 80s, you had two big rivals. You had a lot of rivals, but the two biggest ones were Dusty Rhodes, who was arguably, other than Andre, maybe the greatest drawing card at the time, and Mr. Wrestling number 2, who was over huge in Georgia. Maybe not other places like Dusty was, but was over huge in Georgia. Tell me about working with those two. Did you have a preference that enjoy working with one more than the other?
Not really. Two completely different styles, because Mr. Wrestling number 2, as we know, Johnny Walker, he was a wrestler. He wrestled, so you knew that when you went up against him, you were going to go in there and you better have your wrestling game sharp. Dusty was a more volatile guy. He didn't do as much wrestling as he did punching, kicking, and showboating, you know.
Dancing. So
you knew that was going to be the major part of the match with him. But both of them were, I never enjoyed getting punched and kicked, but I always enjoyed being a part of a quality match, and I probably had as many quality matches with those guys as I ever did with anybody else, other than possibly Dick Steinmore.
Yeah, that's before that name I know, but it's before my time. So one of the things you have in common with both Dusty and Wrestling 2 is all three of you guys were great promos. Did the fact that they were such good promos as baby faces, did that help feed you to want to, kind of like, hey, that was pretty good, I'm going to one-up you?
Not really. I never worried about how good or how bad anybody else was. I just wanted to do my thing, and I knew how to do mine. So I'd go out and do mine, and mine might be completely different than and totally unrelated to some of the things that they said or did. But I was doing the things my way and let them do their way.
So 1981, the famous El Santo angle, speaking of promos, in Championship Wrestling from Florida. Whose idea was that? And did you think back that 35 years, did you think back then that 35 years later, so many people would still be bringing that angle up to you?
Well, I've been told by many people that are like wrestling historians that that was one of the top 5 greatest angles ever in the wrestling business.
I agree.
And I can honestly, without hurting anyone else's feelings and everything, I can honestly sit back and say that I thought up the whole thing all by myself.
I love it. Yeah, I watched that angle as a kid on Saturday morning at noon on Channel 6. In South Florida, and I'll never forget it. And by the way, for those who may not ever seen it, because there's some fans that listen to the podcast that are younger. It is on YouTube. I watched it today. If you just put in the Assassin El Santo, it comes right up. But it's really an amazing angle. The stuff that you did, and I don't want to give too much of it away for those who haven't seen it. And then Gordon Soley's reactions were priceless as well. Hey, it was easy for Dusty. He just had to sit around and sort of say thank you. But so it's funny. Did you ever think though, 35 years later, that people, did you think at the time, God, this is a great angle, or did you just think, hey, I'm just going to draw some money, so let's do it?
Nah, you were thinking of it for the moment. Back in those days, we never thought about Hall of Fames and being eulogized and so on. Like is what's actually happening today in my career now, and so on. Where I had my last match in 1989. I haven't had a pair of tights on or been in the ring since, and yet I'm still in demand.
Yeah.
I'm still doing personal appearances and everything. In fact, last Saturday I did a personal appearance. I'm doing another one this Saturday night, and the following Saturday I got. As a matter of fact, for the next 5 Saturdays, I've got personal appearances lined up. That's
awesome, and well deserved as well. Hey, let me ask you about booking. You booked different territories. Did you have like certain? I don't know if there's a phrase right now about being a quote unquote Paul Heyman guy, or like in TNA being a quote unquote Jeff Jarrett guy. It means that that people that are loyal, that those guys go to. When you were booking a territory and you were coming in, were there any Jody Hamilton go-to guys that you were the first few guys that you thought to come in and pop a territory?
Well, to be real honest with you, I wasn't blessed with that situation. The territory that I went in and took over as a booker and everything, the talent was worn out. That's one of the reasons why they weren't drawing, and they expected me to come in and wave the magic wand, and all of a sudden everybody has been rejuvenated, and the houses are full, and so on. It doesn't work that way. Generally, what happens when a territory goes to pot, Carolinas, for instance, when the Carolinas dropped, the reason it had dropped is because they had the same faces in there for 5 or 6 straight years. I mean, they never changed. And then they brought in George Scott, and George Scott stopped here in Atlanta at my house and had dinner. And we were talking, and I told him, I said, George, I said, the only way you're going to be successful in the Carolinas, I said, you got to get rid of all the old homesteaders, bring in brand new, fresh talent. He got rid of most of the old homesteaders, with the exception of 1 or 2. He brought in fresh talent and popped the territory. The rest is history. And, of course, that applies everywhere. Everywhere that I was a booker and everything, you're going to be strapped with a few guys that are pets of the owner of the territories and so on. And since you're working for the owner, then you got to kind of walk around certain situations. And them having a pet and wanting the pet to always be on the cards and always be in important matches on the cards and so on. But they expect you, as the booker, to draw big houses to boot, but using worn-out talent. Well, it doesn't work that way. But by the same token, you manage to get around it with a little diplomacy and so on. And I still maintain that being a booker is the worst job I have ever had.
I thought you were going to say that one of the best experiences of your life. Come on, Jody.
It is worse than experiences in real life. It's one of the worst experiences I've ever had.
Oh, my goodness. So
especially when you're working for guys like Eddie Graham. Because there was no way in hell you were ever going to please Eddie Graham. Because Eddie Graham, contrary to what a lot of people may have thought, Eddie Graham knew a lot about the business. But Eddie Graham thought that he knew more about the business than anybody else. So when you went in there to work for Eddie Graham, you were not given a free hand. So if you're not given a free hand to express and implement your ideas and so on, and you're having to filter in his thoughts, his ideas into your angles and ideas and so on, then they're no longer your thoughts and your ideas. They're diluted. And that's what you had to contend with Eddie down there in Florida. Because he hated the fact that he was burnt out as a booker and was going to keep his hand in it regardless.
Wow. Was he as good a finish guy as lore has it?
Oh yeah. The only problem with it was too goddamn long.
Right.
And certainly there was too many guys in the business couldn't go out there and remember goddamn long ass finishes like that.
Wow. So we all know in hindsight that WTBS, the Superstation, changed the entire wrestling. Well, actually changed the world. But just in terms of wrestling, it changed the business. I know you were around that on TBS in that era, and you're a smart guy. When did you get the sense that everything was changing and that people were watching, on a national level, and that was going to change, the way that the wrestling business moved forward?
When did I get that idea that everything in wrestling was going to change?
Yeah.
The day that Ted Turner announced that he was going on cable.
Wow. And so
because that not only that didn't make us a regional wrestling program anymore. That made us a national program automatically.
Right.
Because TBS was going about everywhere at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it, and it was must see viewing every Saturday night on TV.
Yeah.
I'd go to my friend's house because I didn't have cable yet. Was there any pushback from the other territories at that point? Because
oh yeah, sure, yeah, they some of them bitched about it and so on, but then they got smart and started supplementing their cards with some of the guys that were over on the TV, and they would get a hold of this office and bring them in, book them, and draw big money with them.
Yeah, I remember Florida every 6 months or so would bring in Tommy Rich for a week or two back then when he was hot off the TV, and guys like you and Wrestling 2.
Yeah.
Hey, I always wondered this, and I don't think my memory's bad, but I don't think I ever asked you when we were shooting I don't even think I knew when we were talking back in the WCW days. The Assassin was so well known. I'm just wondering why when you went to and several times when you went to Continental Territory, you were not the Assassin, you were the Flame.
Well, because they had allowed two different teams and one single to be an assassin. And I was going in the territory practically right on the heels of these guys who had been there so long, or too long to start with, and they were imitations. So I wasn't going to go in there and try to revive, so to speak, the name of the Assassin. So I just said, to hell with it. I'll change my gimmick completely, and went in as the Flame, and I tossed the fire in the ring and all that crap.
Was that sort of a challenge to you after all those decades to start something fresh?
Yeah, it was a challenge, and it was something new and something that I liked, and I get a big kick out of doing it, especially throwing the fire.
Yeah. You had after I know Tom Ernesto will always be your favorite assassin partner, but you had several other partners in different territories. The most famous of which I think were Randy Colley, Roger Smith, and then later on Hercules Hernandez. Do you have a favorite out of those three?
Not really. I thought they were all good partners. They were all good guys. I have nothing but admiration and respect for all three guys, and I think that they feel. I think it's a mutual feeling. So, and there again, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say that. Yeah, one guy was my favorite over the other guy or whatever. Because we were successful. All three guys that I had as partners were successful, and so on. And I was satisfied with their loyalty and devotion to the team, and the degree of success that we had speaks for itself.
So, in what changed my life, you went to WCW to work behind the scenes. I believe you had mentioned George Scott earlier going to the Carolinas. I believe it was George Scott who had brought you into WCW, correct?
Yeah.
What did you originally were hired? I know what became, but were you originally hired to help book?
Yes. I was hired as an assistant booker.
And how long did that?
That didn't last.
That only lasted.
That didn't last long.
Only while George was there. You were able to hang on though, and did a lot of things, including booking the.
Well,
go ahead.
I had a lot of obstacles to overcome. A lot of guys were shooting at me, and when Flair took over, he had his own buddies and stuff that he wanted in there, and I was in the spot that he had groomed Arn Anderson for, and so on. And there was a little bit of rub there, but I hung in there, and Jim Hurd hired me, and then George Scott came in later on, and so on, and then of course it was shortly after that there was the big merge, and then the merge caused the demise of WCW.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a little bit. One of the things I know you were in charge of, because that's how I sort of got my in, was booking the enhancement talent. I was asking Rip Rogers last week this question, but you're the expert, since you were the one who was in charge of it. I tell the story about how I didn't realize that there was like a Rip Rogers in Ohio, and there was a George South and Italian Stallion in the Carolinas, and there was a Mike Jackson in Alabama, and there was a little Jewish guy in Florida for a time. And you would tell us what you needed, and we'd bring up guys. Now the other guys, Stallion and George South and Rip, they'd get a payday for working too. I just got a little bit of a favor from the talent that I booked, and I think y'all paid for my rental car. Was booking enhancement always done that way, where there was like different bookers in different areas that would organize it, or is that something that you came up with to keep it fresh?
Let me say this. I more or less perfected it. It was done sporadically before I did it. And the other thing about it is I know that just about everybody that preceded me used to take kickbacks from the guys that they booked and so on. I never took a dime from anybody. Whatever these guys made, they kept in their pockets. Because I figured that was their hard-earned money. I didn't work in the ring for it, and they deserved whatever they made to stay in their pocket. And that's why I allowed them to do it.
I could certainly vouch for that. So you're either tasked or it was your idea to start the power plant and start a school. Whose idea was that?
Oh, mine.
It was your idea. My next question was, did you enjoy teaching or booking more? But since booking was the worst job you ever had, you said, I think I have my answer.
Yeah. So much for that question.
Yeah. So you're much more happy as a teacher than you were as a booker. Who's the most natural talent ever to come out of the power plant? The guy that just seemed to just go in and get it faster than anybody else.
Oh God, that's so many of them came through there that was such phenomenal talent and so on. It would be almost impossible because there was nobody that was so outstanding in one area that they would have to be my first choice. Everybody had their own ups and downs, and some of them were great to start with in certain areas, weak in others. But everybody had good points and weak points. And most everybody was. Oh God! Everybody, as far as I was concerned, I looked at them on an equal basis, regardless of how good they were or how damn bad they were. And they sent some guys down there that literally could not stick their finger in their ear, we'll put it that way. I cleaned it up and put it that way. But they had also sent guys down there that were very talented guys. And I knew the difference between the talented guys and the fly-by-nighters and the guys that were full of shit.
Did you?
And I eliminated those guys in a hurry.
Did you, when you saw Bill Goldberg, could you ever imagine that he'd have become what he went on to be, or was that
who?
Bill Goldberg?
Yeah, we were doing TV in Florida, in Orlando.
Right, I remember.
And I was at the monitor backstage, watching everything and giving cues and stuff. And I saw Bill do that spear. And he did it for a high spot. So I told my son, who was refereeing one of during that night, but wasn't refereeing that particular match, I said, when Goldberg comes through the curtain, I said, tell him to stop by the desk here. I want to talk to him. So when Goldberg came through, he came over the desk and everything, and I said, Bill, I saw you do that spear. I said, that is one of the most devastating looking moves I have seen in wrestling. I said, that needs to be your signature finish. Oh, no, I want to do the brainbuster and everything. I said, all right, do the brainbuster. I said, but every time that you do that brainbuster, I said, your signature setup move has got to be the spear. I said, then don't ever, ever, ever give anybody the spear and then not give them the brainbuster following it immediately. And he did that on the next series of TV shows, and it was over instantly.
I actually recall that, funny enough, and because I think I was sitting backstage helping you out and running guys, and not only do I recall it, you did that for so many people. I opened it saying that, and you did that, so many little tidbits and words of advice that you would pull the guys over as they were coming through the curtain, change, lives, and just can't say what a giving person that you were with your knowledge and your experience is amazing. So you mentioned WCW going out of business, and I know because I would sit sometimes in your office in the power plant, and we would talk, and we don't need to get into what we would talk about, but it was obvious that a guy with 40 years in the business, that wasn't really allowed to offer much, as far as input. How helpless is that to watch the Titanic sink, knowing that you might be able to save it?
Yeah, well, I saw what was going to happen. I predicted what was going to happen to WCW when I still had an office down at the CNN Center. Everything They had two towers, the South Tower and the North Tower. Wrestling office was in the South Tower, and the so-called elite of the executives was in the North Tower. And they turned their nose, even if they had to go rub elbows with the commoners in the South Tower, they found it quite distasteful. You know, and they were a bunch of assholes. And when they started taking over the business, which they knew absolutely nothing about, and they started appointing people to run the business, to run the wrestling business and everything, that's when I predicted as well. I said, if it continues under these circumstances and everything, I said, we are doomed. And we were holding our own against WWE for, I forget exactly how many weeks it was, but it was over a year that we had higher ratings than Vince had.
Right.
So why would you change your format if you're beating the pants off of the opposition rating wise? Why the hell would you change? And those idiots, they're complete idiots, and I wish to God they were listening right now. Those idiots in the North Tower saw what was going on and sent orders to us in the South Tower. We had to start doing everything just like Vince was doing. They even went so damn far as to have me order a different color mat for the ring to match New York. That's how stupid they were.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I forgot you were in charge of I forgot you were in charge of the ring crew. Yeah, you did a lot. God bless guys like Pez and Klondike Bill and who went out there and did the ring for you. So 2005, WWE enhancement started Deep South Wrestling. You started Deep South Wrestling as a developmental territory. Didn't last too long. Was it more like a style of clash, a clash of styles? Sorry, their corporate style versus you ran almost a boot camp until these guys proved themselves.
Well, first of all, my big stickler was, and this is what I clashed with Laurinaitis about. If you're going to be successful in the business, you can't learn in the ring if you're so damn blowed up that you can't think. So I wanted everybody to be in shape.
Right.
So I was sending them through routines that I knew would get them in shape. You cannot get in wrestling shape lifting weights in a gym. It's impossible. You have to do the things to get in shape that you do in the ring. And what is that? Running the ropes, up and down, taking bumps, bing, de boom, and up and all around. And that's what I had the guys doing. And then I had them also doing squats to enhance their leg strength. And my God, I had a couple of guys that didn't like to do squats, and they ran to Laurinaitis, and Laurinaitis ran to Vince, and oh my God, you're trying to kill these guys, and just a bunch, because they were all a bunch of pussy-ass dickwads anyway.
Well, I had to. The next question was what went wrong with that relationship, but you answered that question for me too. You're on a roll. So I'll wrap this up. You've been more than generous with your time. We started out the interview, other than talking about me, by talking about 1958. You headlined Madison Square Garden, 19 years old. It's 58 years later. You've accomplished so much.
Actually, 60.
60. You've accomplished so much. What's your if you had to pick one, if you can't pick one, what's your proudest accomplishment in this business?
You really want to know?
I actually think I know, but yes, I really want to know.
What?
I think you're going to say staying married all these years to a wonderful person. That's what I think you're going to say.
You got it.
Am I right?
You got it. You got it.
Do I win a prize? Nope. That's what I thought you were going to say, and I didn't want to get too personal with your wonderful wife and bring her up.
You got it. My most proud accomplishment is the fact that we got married January 2nd, 1960, and we're still happily married.
That's awesome. I'll never forget, Jody, and you probably remember this too. You would never go to catering. Your wife would bring you these amazing-looking lunches. And you'd sit at the gorilla position, the Jody position, and first she'd make the salad with so many layers of all this stuff, and then she had some sort of lasagna or something. And I always told you, your wife looked like one of the best cooks I ever saw. But I had a feeling you were going to say that. And hey, in a business like this, where that is a proud accomplishment that you've been together this long. Yeah. I congratulate you. Yeah. She's a wonderful woman. You're a great guy. I'm honored to have had you on. I do want to promote the book. It's The Man Behind the Mask by you and co-written by Scott Teal. When I ordered it last year or 2 years ago, I got it on Amazon. So it is.
Well, there's a revised edition of it now, where he added about 30 or 40 pages and a whole bunch of new pictures and stuff. Anybody that got the original book might want to consider getting a revised edition.
The Man Behind the Mask, the revised edition. I read the book. I recommend it. It's just a journey through ever-changing landscape of something that we all love called the wrestling business. Jody, thank you again for all you've done for me, all you've done for so many guys out there that maybe don't get the opportunity to tell you. And give my best to your wonderful bride, and just really honored that you would come on this podcast.
I feel honored that you invited me.
Wow, I want to thank Jody. Humbling to hear that, humbling and thankful to hear that. We had never discussed this before, I swear, to hear that his original intention was to cut me off in a week or two. Just do the favor to Bob Roop and then blow me off. So thank God that he saw the passion that I still have. And so great to hear from him and to hear just a little bit of the stories that he has. And I would definitely recommend The Man Behind the Mask by Jody and Scott Teal on Amazon.com. You could get that, or you could Google it. And I hope that if you haven't already, you will check out the El Santo angle and maybe also some of the other work of the Masked Assassin. Truly one of the greatest heels, in my opinion, in the history of professional wrestling. Humbling to call him a friend and a mentor. So that's about it. As we mentioned earlier, hoping to get Tessa Blanchard for next week. If we confirm that, we will send out a tweet and take your questions as well. Probably a lot of questions for a third-generation wrestler like her. And looking forward to a lot of positive things. Like I've been saying, we're counting down to the 1-year anniversary of City Ringside, and I'm humbled that we're still rocking and rolling. If you haven't already, please download, please subscribe, please tell your friends and neighbors, spread the word. Hit me up on Twitter at David Penzer, at Penzer Ringside. And hey, be sure to check out at CWF FanFest on Twitter as well, at CWF FanFest. Talk a little bit about FanFest we do twice a year down here in Tampa in association with CWF Championship Wrestling from Florida Archives Facebook page and its founder, Barry Rose, who's an historian. And we got the first non-WWE appearance together in November of Pat Patterson and Jerry Briscoe. Talk about guys who have history and stories to tell, and amazing careers. Also, Ron and Robert Fuller are going to be there as well. There are opportunities to have dinner with Pat and Jerry, Q&A. Also, opportunities to do a 90-minute Q&A earlier in the day with Ron and Robert Fuller. We'll have more guests to announce. Easy way just to follow it at CWF FanFest. And if you're on Facebook and you're a fan of wrestling history, you could go to CWF Archives. It's one of the Facebook fan pages. You have to sign up, and then you'll get approved. And every single day, its founder, Barry Rhodes, puts on results from this day in championship wrestling from Florida history, all the way dating back to the 40s, all the way through the late 80s when the territory closed. So it's a history lesson every single day that pops up in your Facebook feed if you like stuff like that. So appreciate you tuning in, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week. As always, David Penzer, sitting ringside. Have a good one.
Follow David Penzer on Twitter at David Penzer. Also, make sure to follow the show on Twitter at Penzer Ringside. You've been sitting ringside with David Penzer on Radio Influence.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.